Hi guys, it's Shirah Benarde, the CEO and co-founder of NightCap. We are on a mission to prevent drink spiking. So today we have David Heineman, who's been with us since the very beginning of NightCap. David is a great friend of ours. He's also a martial arts specialist teaching people how to protect themselves. David had so many amazing safety tips in these episodes. We had one episode for David talking to students, and we have another episode talking to parents. So make sure you either watch both or pick the right one for you. So excited for you guys to watch this, and make sure you follow all of David's stuff on social media so you can stay up to date on safety tips and how to protect yourself. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Turns out that he was sexually assaulting his fraternity brother for over a year and videotaping.
Oh my God.
Not only did I know him personally, but I also interviewed the male that he assaulted for over a year.
If I'm a student and I'm in this situation, what is someone like you telling me? How am I getting out of this situation?
Number one,
David, thank you for being here. And I'd love to just start with giving us a little bit of background on yourself.
my name is David. I am a self-defense instructor and safety expert, I guess you could say kindly. I've been involved in martial arts for close to, if not over 30 years now. So pretty much since I was 5, I've been doing martial arts, everything from, starting off karate, Tae Kwon Do, and then moving on to more of the combat sports. So the jiu-jitsu, the boxing, Thai boxing, MMA. I do a lot of work in the combative world, meaning I work with law enforcement, I've worked with military units. I've both trained and have been trained by individuals from those different agencies and jobs. So I've gotten the opportunity to work with some people that have been through some real world experience, but didn't necessarily have the fight experience. And we've been able to kind of spitball ideas back and forth. But that's opened my eyes to what actually happens out in the real world, which allows us as instructors to develop our programs based off of what people are actually experiencing, as well as what we are seeing on the internet. Because yes, everyone has phones, everybody records things. And as disturbing as it may be for someone like me, it is an opportunity to learn, study human behavior, study violent behavior, what it actually looks like and entails, and it makes us better instructors so that we can make you all better prepared. So in addition to working with those types of groups, I teach kids through adults on a regular basis. A big part of my teaching career, I should say, has been working with survivors of sexual and domestic violence. More importantly, it has been focused around college-age students. I spent a few years traveling the country working with sororities specifically, as some fraternities, but mostly sororities, to work with the women on those campuses, educate them about the dangers that college campuses present. As fun as they may be, there are dangers that people need to be aware of, the dangers of dating, the dangers of drinking, and just the sexual violence that does occur, believe it or not, on just about every single campus in the country. And again, hearing stories and working with these survivors firsthand has given me insight into, again, what actually happens compared to what the school might say or what other people might say or what you might read online. This is straight from survivors themselves. Or I've had, I won't say it's an opportunity, but it is. I've had the opportunity to interview and talk with actual predators who are serving some serious time for assaulting people on college campuses to get their side of things and what they've looked for and how they went about doing things. Because again, as disturbing as it might be, it provides us insight that we can then provide to the public to make them better prepared.
Wow.
So a little bit of a mouthful.
That is a conversation that I also need to have with you another time, because sitting down with a predator, I can't even imagine what that's like.
I was actually very good friends with him for about 2 years, not knowing.
Not knowing.
Yes, that will be, yes, nobody knew. So that will be a story for another time. But I don't know, he was sentenced for just over 40 years. So
Oh my
it was a pretty hefty time that he was serving. He might be out on parole, but I know he got sentenced for a hefty time.
Did you know him before or after he committed the crime?
Before. When I was prospecting at my school, he was the student that I spent the weekend with when I was prospecting for my school that I went to. And then when I attended that school, he was, so I'm trying to think, it might have just happened I don't remember if it might have happened either my freshman year or my sophomore year that he was arrested. Actually, no, it was my sophomore. He was a senior. So
And
yeah, I
so
knew.
this was when you were in high school or college?
No, college. He was
College.
when I was a senior in high school. He was at my school that I attended, and I was prospecting as a prospective student. And so we got the opportunity to spend the weekend with an upperclassman. He was my upperclassman, and then he and I became good friends. And then for the first two or three, I don't remember the time frame. It was either my first 2 or 3 years at campus. Hung out all the time, worked out, had lunch. He was in the same like business school as I was, so we weren't in the same classes because of our age difference. But helped guide me through a lot of that stuff. Was pretty much like your picture perfect school student. And then
Okay.
turns out that he was sexually assaulting his fraternity brother for over a year
Oh my
and
God.
videotaping. So
Oh my
yeah,
God.
that was a pretty crazy story. So not only did I know him personally, but I also interviewed, and when I was working on a film of my own, I interviewed the male that he assaulted for over a year.
Where,
And
where do we watch this?
I used to post it. I can send it to you privately. It is not posted. It probably would not be deemed acceptable these days, just because this was back in the day, and I just kind of threw stuff together for a documentary, and it really had no. It was a good way of getting the point across, but it really didn't have. I would have completely redone it if I were to film it now. But I had interviews from him. I had interviews from counselors. I had interviews from therapists. I had multiple survivors that I had interviews with, and I was just trying to get the word out of what rape and sexual assault looked like on college campuses. And he was like the final piece of that story because, again, he was a prospective student. It was his roommate. He found the videos of himself when he was trying to look up homework on his roommate's computer and stumbled upon files of himself being sexually assaulted while he was sleeping. Or I guess he was drugged in the sense, but
Oh my
and it was
God.
his whole downfall into depression and suicide attempts and the whole just coping with what happened to him after, years later after it went to court and just like the downfall. So yeah, I can share those details and we can have a whole conversation about that because it is a wild story. But yeah, I was good friends with both guys and we had no idea, but things made sense. Like once you learn what predators are like and the behaviors that they exhibit and stuff, a lot of flags like popped up. But in the moment, you're like, yeah, this dude's awesome.
Can we go into that just for a second? Like, what are those red flags that you consider?
Um,
Like one or two? Like
yeah,
you're
it's hard. It's hard because like one of the flags was just how sincere and caring he was, and that's not a flag that you want to hear from people like, oh, this person's really nice, but he was the nicest guy. Um, took me under his wing in a lot of things with the school. Took me out to lunch. Like once a month, we would just catch up and stuff. Like he was a cool dude, like super genuine guy. Again, he was a couple years older than me. I was a freshman when he was a junior, or something like yeah, around that time. Um, but it might have been. I don't want to say grooming. I don't want to say that, though. That obviously that is something that predators do as a whole. But I could see that there was probably, and as far as I'm aware, this was the only victim. It was just the one kid. But some of his behavior of just how nice he was, or how much he took care of his friends and bought them food, took them out, paid for trips, paid for this, like did that, like just the over the top, constantly like good guy persona. If you kind of take a step back and look at it from a big picture, like it's a little much. We're
Do you
college kids.
think
It's
it's
a
like
little
a
much.
power move to
I think it
just,
was in
yeah,
this case. I think it was,
like,
especially because they were fraternity brothers.
so it's kind of like someone who's establishing control over you.
Yeah, because the guy had no idea about it. It was like, when he was sleeping or when he was overly intoxicated and passed out, or if he was drugged at any moment. But I mean, it was over a year's worth that this had been going on. It wasn't like this was a one-time thing. This had gone over for over a year. So it
Oh
was a
my,
ton. It was a ton of pictures and videos of what he had done to him.
so, oh my God, that's
So again,
terrible.
it could be like, again, even if it's the one, like that's what you'll tend to see with the predators as a whole is like the power and just like I have this over you. So a lot of times when we would see, when I would talk with women who were assaulted by someone that they know, which more times than not, it is someone that you are aware of. Um, they would be able to repeat that behavior time and time again because they now have that power over you. Like, listen, Shirah, you don't want to talk about this, so you're just going to keep quiet, but I'm going to keep doing it because I know you're going to keep quiet. And if you speak up about it, who are they going to believe? You as a freshman, or me as a senior, or me as a star of a football team, or me as your professor, or, you know, someone that's in power, or someone that has power over you. They can use that as a threat to keep you quiet. And most of the cases, most of the ladies that I worked and talked to on campuses, their cases resolved something around that. It was authority figures, it was upperclassmen, it was boyfriends, it was someone that, one, had trust already, so that guard was down, so you didn't overlook their extra kindness, or if they had any red flags, like if they got verbal or physically aggressive in any manner, you might have overlooked it because I love this person, or, you know, I know them long enough, they're just having an off day or something. So like that kind of stuff can hide under the radar a little bit, but it a lot of times revolved around like a power control. There was only a handful that I can recall off the top of my head where it was kind of like a one and done situation where it wasn't a boyfriend. It was just like a random get together and they just took advantage because they saw you were by yourself or you were intoxicated. But again, more times than not, it was, I'm your boyfriend. I may have only assaulted or raped you once, but I was able to do so because I was your boyfriend. And then I just moved on like nothing ever happened.
Oh my God, this is terrible. If I'm a student and I'm in this situation, what is someone like you telling me? How am I getting out of this situation?
It's
Or what are
hard.
the signs
Yeah,
too?
it's hard if it's a situation where, if it's a relationship. I had one resident that was in an abusive relationship, and I 100% knew it was an abusive relationship, and her boyfriend didn't even go to our school. They went to two separate schools. But if she left the building without calling him or telling him, or went to, like, pretty much he had to know where she was at all times. And if he heard, and I was an RA, so I was in people's rooms all the time. I was walking by, if your room's open, it's my job to be the friendly RA, say hi, how's everyone doing? But if he heard my voice or another guy's voice, like, you'd hear him screaming on the phone, like you could just tell. But it's hard telling someone that that's the type of relationship that they're in. It's one of the hardest things to get people to acknowledge and pull themselves out of. And unfortunately, for abusive relationships like that, even if there hasn't been physical abuse or like a sexual assault per se, if it's like teetering on those lines, maybe it's just emotional abuse or verbal abuse, sometimes it takes that attack to be like, holy crap, this really is a bad situation. And it's unfortunate, but sometimes it has to come to that for people to kind of get that realization. Otherwise, if I'm witnessing, like if I'm your friend, it's up to me at that point to do what I need to do to get you to acknowledge the type of situation you're in and be like, hey, this isn't normal. People don't normally act like that. Boyfriends don't do this. Someone that loves you would never do this. And you just have to kind of slowly incorporate that and just remind it, but I can't force it either. Like if I go too fast with it, you're going to turn it on me and you're going to get closer with them. And we actually just had one of my own students that we just got out of a relationship and got her into her own place. But it took us probably 3 months to get her to acknowledge the situation that she was in and get her out of there. So
Now,
it happens.
how does someone eventually come to that conclusion? Because honestly, 3 months doesn't feel like a long time. I feel like these things take a really long time to recognize, especially when you're in it. And also, how common are these relationships?
Um, I would say it's probably more common than people think in college because of the fact that people don't know how to deal with their emotions. I don't know if it's like an intentional abusive relationship. I think it's more so we're young kids. I say kids, but you're 18, 19, 20 years old. You're still young. You haven't matured enough yet. You don't understand the relationships, or you hear stuff on, like, relationships nowadays are so different because of social media, because of the things that we see online, or what men are telling other men, and so on and so forth. And so people have a false sense of what love looks like, or a false sense of what being sexual looks like in a positive way, that people will do things that they think is okay, but it's not. And then obviously if I do something, but you don't say anything about it, or you don't speak up about it, and I don't know, then I'm going to continue doing that type of behavior. I'm going to talk about it with my friends, and they're going to do that behavior without necessarily knowing that what I'm doing is wrong. And I'm not trying to say that that's an okay answer, but that's the reality sometimes. Sometimes people aren't doing it on purpose. They just don't know that what they're doing is considered assault or that it is wrong. So it also takes like the education of what sexual assault is, and more importantly, talking with those conversations to men in particular, so they understand that is a big thing. But for the women, you all hear about this on a regular basis. You're experiencing it more on a regular basis than men probably ever will, and that's just how it is statistically on schools. I can't really say what the time frame is or when that critical moment is. It could be months, it could be years before you kind of have that realization. And like I said, it could come down to you just having enough. Maybe they've hit you one too many times, or they've assaulted you one too many times, and finally you're like, yeah, I'm in a bad relationship. But I think at first, because again, we don't fully comprehend what you're in, it's love. He was drunk that night, or I made a mistake, and it's just easy to blame yourself and move on and keep them happy so that it doesn't happen again. And that's, to me, that's what I've seen a lot with domestic cases, which is why they are so tricky to deal with to begin with. So I can't, I can tell you that my resident, it probably took her 4 years, from my understanding, to get out of that relationship, because I went back to my school years later to do a conference, and she was in attendance, and she had already graduated, but she came back and was in attendance, and I could tell we never said a word to each other, but I kind of looked at her, and she gave me a look, and I gave her a look, and I could tell that she finally had come to terms with the relationship that she was in, and that she had gone out of that relationship. And I had a coworker in school that was in an abusive relationship, and he used to get pissed off when she and I would hang out. And I'm like, we work together. We're both RAs together. We're both up till 3 a.m, keeping an eye on the halls. Like, what are we going to do? Like, we need to keep each other awake. We're just hanging out, and you would get pissed off. And that's one that I never said anything. In hindsight, I should have. But she did get out of that relationship as well. So sometimes I think a lot of it, when it comes to abusive relationships, unfortunately, a big component of getting out of those relationships is having a good group around you that's going to say something. So it's an emphasis that for parents and students, as parents, talk to your kids, making sure that they find a good group. And then students, find a good group of people that you trust through and through, that are going to tell you to your face, hey, this isn't right, or that's not okay, or you need to leave this person. Like, you need to have friends that are not going to bullshit you and that are going to speak up and tell you that that's wrong, whether it's the relationship, whether it's a bad hunch about a person, whatever the case is. If someone in your group is getting a bad gut feeling, trust them, because they're your friends and they have your best interest at heart. But you need to find that group. I think that's probably one of the best things that you can do for yourself on a school campus, is have a good group, because you're going to be on your own. Your parents aren't there. I'm going by myself to a brand new school with 30,000+ people potentially. Find a good group of 4 or 5 people that have your best interest at heart.
Yeah, that's such a good piece of advice. I feel like, we talk all about, I've been talking about a lot of like safety tips and like how to protect yourself physically, but also this starts with like who you're surrounding yourself with, and like where you're at mentally too. Because, when I was in college, I think there were a lot of things that would slide with my friends. And if we had this conversation before I went to college, I might have incorporated some different people in my circle. And I think it's just really good to remember that. What would you recommend to a freshman or anyone going back to school to find that good group of people? Like, sometimes that can be really hard, because a lot of people, when they're in college, I feel like you have to go sometimes through a lot of different friend groups. Like,
Yeah, and you will, like, you're finding yourself at school. In my opinion, you kind of want to find people that can be them. Find people that you can be your true self around. If I have to put on any sort of persona or show that I'm interested in something just to be around a certain group of people, then that's probably not a group that's going to have your best interest at heart. I want the group of friends that if I were to run into your room crying in the middle of the night, that you would wake up and ask what's wrong. and sit there and listen to it. But if I have to act a certain way around you, that's probably not a good friend group. And again, like I never did anything with Greek life. I never played any sport. I mean, I played sports in school, but not for the schools outside of that. So obviously I had my teammates that we were very close with, but they lived, 2 states over. And then I would honestly say that my best friends in school, and still to this day, the 2 people that I probably talk almost daily with were 2 of my residents. When I was a senior, they were freshmen, and the 3 of us are best friends. Like they've been at my wedding, they stood up at my wedding. I've been to their weddings, I've stood up at their weddings. Like we've gone traveling together. Like they are 2 of my absolute best friends, and we were always around each other in school, and we were just able to be goofballs with each other. We were able to be honest with each other. We had deep talks with one another, but like that was our core group, and they knew if they needed something in the middle of the night, give me a call, and if I needed something, I could always give them a call. And like you said, it's going to be trial and error. So I'm not saying like just go out there and just start opening it up to every single person that you talk with, but you can get an idea of who you could be yourself around. So I think that's the best way that I can kind of phrase it. Who can you be your true self around, and you don't have to pretend to be like, oh, I love sports and I personally hate sports. So I'm not going to sit there and pretend like I like watching football, because I don't. Or I'm not going to pretend like I enjoy going to the bar to drink, because I don't. I'll go and hang out, but I'm not going to start drinking just because you're drinking and I want to do what you're doing. So find people that are going to give you crap, that are going to joke around with you, but that you can still be your true self with, and vice versa. I think that's how you know that they're going to have your back.
No, that's great advice, and it's so true and tangible to.
It'll take time. It may not even happen your first year, unfortunately. Like you said, you might have to go through friend groups to really kind of find the ones that, or unfortunately something might happen to you, and then you find friends through support groups or something like that who have experienced similar things as you, and over that trauma you're able to bond and form good friendships. Sometimes that's how it happens.
I always say in my videos online, like, you should always have a hand signal with your friends, like, that we gotta go. And if you have that one friend that like doesn't listen to the hand signal or doesn't listen to the code word, that's not the friend that you want to go out with, and that's probably not the friend that you want to have in
Yeah.
general.
Like they should
So,
drop what they're doing and be like, yep, I gotta go.
yeah. And in the situation where you continue to hang out with those people, like, you probably will find yourself in some bad situations, because it's important that your friends respect that. Well, thank you so much, David. Where can we find more of your safety tips and tricks? All of.
If you follow my Instagram, David Heineman 90, or look up Stay Safe Martial Arts, both of those should pop up to the same page. But the links to all my socials are there. I post stuff as often as I can on there, whether it's breakdowns, reviews, tips, self-defense tips, safety tips, product recommendations, stuff like that. And then there's also links to my YouTube on there as well, which gives you a more in-depth version. And then the YouTube is just Stay Safe Martial Arts. So both have long and short videos and tips and stuff. And then again, I'm pretty good at responding. So if people do have questions, or if they want to reach out, or if they are interested in training, but they need ideas or recommendations, again, I know a lot of people, so I can either recommend you 2 gyms, or I have no problem looking up gyms and telling you which ones I feel are suited for what you're trying to do.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.